So recently, while researching a video, I came across this kind of relatively interesting information about faithful adaptations. So in interviews for the Big Finish audio story Mission to Magnus, there was some talk about the kind of dated approach that the script took towards women. For those who don't know, Big Finish have this range of audio stories, audio dramas that essentially regenerate old classic Doctor Who episodes that never made it through one reason or another to the screen. Mission to Magnus was one of those stories, and it was initially going to be the third story of the season 23 before they kind of switched it around and went with the Trial of a Time Lord kind of arc instead. Anyway, in these interviews, the cast and crew kind of talk about the stereotypical approach that the original script took towards women. Now in this case, unlike most of Big Finish's other stuff, these lines were kept in, presumably as like some sort of preservation of that like era of Doctor Who. That's kind of what the whole Lost Stories range is about. But this decision and conversation kind of got me thinking about adaptations in general, not just in Doctor Who. I mean, so much of modern film and TV nowadays is not strictly original. 6 of the 10 nominations for the most recent Oscars were in some way or another adaptations. The Lost Stories is barely scratching the surface of Doctor Who adaptations. I think most obviously there are the vast amounts of Doctor Who novelizations for the episodes that were broadcast. I would say the most notable difference from screen to paper in this instance would probably be the Daleks novelisation, the one that I'm actually reading at the moment, which changes the introduction of Susan, Ian, Barbara and the Doctor completely to what it was in An Unearthly Child. And it's actually probably one of the common reasons for the misconception that the Daleks were the first Doctor Who villain, because this was written in 1964, not so long after the actual episode itself. But even Doctor Who's physical publications have seen their fair share of adaptations. Big Finish has taken both books and comics and given them the audio treatment. And famously, Paul Cornell was able to adapt his 1995 Doctor Who book Human Nature into the Series 3 televised story two-parter Human Nature and the Family of Blood, 2 episodes that people absolutely love from Doctor Who as a whole. But of course, it doesn't end there. 3 stage plays have been adapted for audio by, you guessed it, Big Finish. And obviously there were the 2 Peter Cushing Doctor Who films, both based on 60s Hartnell stories. So basically what I was thinking was, what are your thoughts on adaptations? Like, how much should someone be able to take someone else's work and change it? This thought also kind of came around recently after watching the new Netflix show Heartstopper. That show in many places is essentially a beat for beat, word for word, shot for shot kind of reenactment of a lot of the pages in the original graphic novel. Granted, it was written by the same person who did the graphic novel, but still, I mean, I think the series is still great. But it can seem or feel a little bit cheap, at least from my perspective, when someone has put what feels like very little effort into transforming the initial product into some other form of media. But I guess, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Even my favourite film, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, was written and directed by the same guy who wrote the books however many years earlier, and he took creative liberties to adapt his own work from written word to screen, and it worked well for it. It paid off. Obviously, Heartstopper, being a graphic novel, already had those kind of visual elements, so that would kind of make it so there'd be less to adapt in a way. Who am I to say? So what's the right thing to do here? When it comes to those 2 Peter Cushing films, Doctor Who and the Daleks I actually prefer over the original story, but Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD I don't, even though they were both adapted by the same person, Milton Subotsky, from Terry Nation's work. Adaptation is such an intricate world and ecosystem that I feel like sometimes it can kind of feel like luck. Alice Oseman can make very little changes to Heartstopper, and Stanley Kubrick can make loads of changes to The Shining, and yet people still love both. I guess we should also consider the actual intention of the adaptation. The first series of the Lost Stories range is clearly an attempt to replicate and faithfully bring about the atmosphere and general feeling of 80s Doctor Who, but many of the novelizations and even the animations to a degree aim to reimagine the stories that we love for a new kind of unique experience. What do you think? Is there a line that we shouldn't cross, or is there a line that we should cross when it comes to adaptations, that we should always kind of strive to adapt a piece of work into something unique? Or should adaptations always be faithful reconstructions? I think at the end of the day I would say it does depend, but sometimes I feel like you do have to make those kind of decisions. So like if it was me personally, the Lost Stories range, if I had that kind of problematic stuff in a script like that, they had so many scripts and stories to choose from when they were doing the first series of the Lost Stories. I just wouldn't have gone for that script. I just kind of would have decided that there might have been something better for me to go after instead of a script that may have a small amount of problematic things in it. Thanks for watching. Just needed something a little bit short and easy to do while I'm finishing off uni work for the year. Hopefully next month will be my most unique video so far, and probably the longest as well. But anyway, yeah, I'm Sam, and I'll see you next time.